Hello and welcome to IP Study video lectures. Today we are going to discuss chapter number 5 of grade 6 social science. The chapter name is Tracing Names of India. So whenever we hear the names India and Bharat, we are full of patriotic feelings. It is our motherland, we really resonate with these two names. But how these names came into existence? What were the different names that were used for India in the ancient and the medieval times? And how our constitution framers came up with these two names in particular to name the country. So if we look at the first article of the Indian Constitution, it clearly says that India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states, right? So this name is used for the country. And if we look at the Constitution of India, it uses the word Bharat. So Bharat arthat India. Now the different references to the name of India come from both in the ancient literature of the country as well as the foreign references. Some of these are not only for the entire country as we know it today, they might be for the Indian subcontinent or the parts of India. The reason for this is that the present territory of India was defined only after 1947. Before that, we see that these countries were different. There was no fixed territory that was associated with a country called India. So these references are perhaps for the entire Indian subcontinent or maybe some parts of it, right? So let us look at the references in the ancient Indian texts. Now one of the most ancient texts that we have as a reference point is that of the Rig Veda. Rig Veda is considered as the oldest Indian text. It was written about 3500 years ago. In this ancient text, we find the reference to the river Indus that exists even today. Now, there is a term which is used there, which is the Sapta Sindhava region. Today's Sapta Sindhava literally means land of 7 rivers. Which are these 7 rivers? It is believed that Sindhu, Vitasha, Asikini, Parushini, Vipasha, Satudri and Saraswati were these 7 rivers. Today, Saraswati is believed to have dried up, but other rivers which are part of the Indus river system still flow in the region of Punjab. Chenab, Jhelum, Ravi, Satluj and Beas are these rivers. Now, apart from the Rig Veda, we also see in Mahabharata the reference to many places in the modern day India. Kurukshetra, as we know, is the region where the battle of Mahabharata was fought. Then there is also reference to Kashmira, present day Kashmir, then Vanga, present day Bengal, then Prag Jyotishka, which is roughly the region of Assam, Kutch in run of Kutch, then Kerala is still used today, and Panchala is a place in modern day Uttar Pradesh. So Panchala must be coming from Panchali, which is another name for Draupadi in Mahabharata, and Dwarka in the present day Gujarat. So these are some of the references to names in the epic Mahabharata which are existing even today. Some names are refined, some names are the old and the new names. Now if we talk about the entire Indian subcontinent and not just parts of India, we find references to 2 names. One is Bharatvarsha, another is Jambul Dvipa. So we will see how these names have also been used in the ancient texts. When we talk about Bharatvarsha, it was a name that was used for the entire Indian subcontinent. And the reference to this name comes from various ancient texts. If we look at the ancient texts, we see that there are many tribes which were called Bharata. And there were many kings, many rulers who were known as Bharata. If you look at the literal meaning of the word, Bharatvarsha means the people living in the kingdom of King Bharata. So that is the literal meaning. One of the references to King Bharata come from the Mahabharata, the Puranas and Kalidasa's play Abhigyana Shakuntalam. Here he talks about King Bharata, who is the son of Dushyant and Shakuntala. He was so powerful that he was described as all conqueror or Sarvadamana, right? So many people believe that it was by the name of this king that the name Bharatvarsha came along. Another important term that was used for India, in fact the Indian subcontinent, was that of Jambul Dvipa. This term literally means the land of the fruit of the jamun tree. So jamun is an important tree that has grown in India since ages. It is a form of a plum. So this tree was believed to be of great significance, and because it grew mainly in the regions around of Indian subcontinent, this term was used. The ancient people were of the philosophy or the belief that the entire world is full of islands, and ancient island of Jambul Dvipa held great significance in the prehistoric times. So this is how the name Jambul Dvipa came along. This term was also used by Ashoka in one of his pillars around 250 BCE. Right? So Ashoka was a very important Mauryan king, and in one of his inscriptions he used the term Jambul Dvipa. And when he talked about Jambul Dvipa, the historians believed that he was talking not just about the Indian mainland, he was also talking about the region which comprised India, Pakistan, Bangladesh and even parts of Afghanistan. Now the term Jambul Dvipa was also mentioned in many of the Buddhist and the Jain texts, right? So we can see that this word was used widely in the ancient Indian texts. So we discussed how the names Bharatvarsha and Jambul Dvipa came along. Now let us discuss about the name Bharata. In the ancient text Vishnu Purana, we see the mention of the word Bharata. Here in this particular verse, it is written that the country that lies north of the ocean and south of the snowy mountains is called Bharat. So clearly the mountain referred to in this text is the Great Himalayas, and the ocean referred here is the Indian Ocean. So the land which lies between the Great Himalayas and the Indian Ocean is Bharat. Today also we see the name Bharat being used widely to describe India. In North India we use Bharat, whereas in South India Bharatam is often used. The Tamil literature also has a reference to the name Bharat. In an ancient poem written about 2000 years ago, it is written, "From Cape Kumari to the south, to the great mountains in the north, and from the oceans in the east to the west." So this line written in a particular poem also tells us about the geography of the Indian subcontinent. So here again we can understand how well aware our ancestors were of their local geography, that they knew how vast was the Indian subcontinent at that time. Now another important perspective in the chapter is how the foreigners referred to India. Now many foreigners had come to India during its history. India was always called the golden bird because of its rich natural resources and a very good economy. One of the first travelers to India were the Persians. So the Persians came to India around the 6th century BCE, so which means about 2500 years from now, and they used the river Indus as one of the viewpoint on how they would call India. For them, the people living to the eastern side of the river Indus came to be known as Indians. But they used different terms. What different terms were used, we will discuss here. So, now the Persians were not able to pronounce the letter S which comes in Sindhu river, right? So instead of S, they used to refer it to as H, right? So Sindhu became Hindu. So Hidu, Hindu, Hind. These were some of the names which were used by the people, right? So these were the names which the Persians used for India. We also see that they used the term Hindustan to describe India, and this reference comes around 1800 years ago. So the Hindustan name was also given to India by Persians. Now following the Persians came the Greeks. Now the Greeks had references to the Persian text, and that is why they knew the term Hindus. But they were not able to pronounce the letter H. So instead they used terms like Indoi or Indike to refer to India. Right? So because the Persians were not able to use the letter S, they called it Hindus, and because the Greeks were not able to use the letter H, called it Indoi, and this is how eventually we came to the term India, which became the English name for our country. The Chinese also used Sindhu River as the reference point to name India. Now because they were not able to pronounce the Sanskrit word Sindhu, they used words like Yindu or Yintu to refer to India. The Chinese also used another term which was Tianzu to refer to India. Now Tianzu literally means heavenly master. So it kind of shows us how they respected India. So China had a great respect for India, and one of the reasons behind this was the philosophy of Buddhism. You see, Buddhism thrived in India, Buddhism was founded in India, but it got popularized in China as well. And one of the reasons behind that was the Xuanzang's visit to India. Xuanzang was a Chinese traveler who came to India in about 7th century. So when Xuanzang came to India, he visited many of the sites of Buddhism. He also visited his monasteries and the universities of India. One of those universities was that of Nalanda University, where he discussed about religion with the philosophers, with the teachers which were present at the Nalanda University. He spent 17 years in India, and when he went back, he took a lot of literature related to Buddhism to his country. And because of this, we see that Buddhism spread widely in China at that time. So this particular table shows how different cultures named India. The Persians used the term Hindustan. The Latins came with the name India. Latin English, the name India is used. If you look at Chinese, they came with Tianzu, Yindu, Yintu. We discussed that. Then the Arabics also called it Al-Hind. So this is how we see that in different languages, because not everyone was able to call it in the same way, because Sindhu is a Sanskrit word from where the name of India came. So because they were not able to pronounce that word properly, they came up with their own adaptations in their own languages. So this is why different cultures have named India differently. And now when we came to the discussion how we have to name our country, of course it was the Constituent Assembly which had to make this tough decision on what to call this country. Many people wanted that the name Bharat should be used, while others said it should be India. So what was the actual debate, and when did this debate happen? It happened on 18 September 1949, when most of the constitution was actually written, and they had to decide whether to call it India or to call it Bharat. Now we have to discuss the arguments of both the sides. Those who supported Bharat, they were of the opinion that this was the name which was rooted in the ancient history of India, right? They said that this name reflected our traditions, our culture in the best way possible. Saint Govind Das even emphasized that this term would be easier to be used by the rural population of India. They would be able to connect with this name better. But those who supported the name India also had very strong arguments. They mentioned how this name was widely used internationally to refer to India, right? So because this name was in the minds of the international community already, they did not want the name India to be completely replaced by Bharat. And this is why many people wanted to negotiate it, wanted to make a compromise where both names were going to be used. There were some suggestions by leaders like K.T. Shah, who suggested alternative names like Bharatvarsha. Some even suggested Hindustan or some of the other names which were used for India during different times. So different people in the assembly had different ideas on how they wanted to name India. They all had very strong arguments, but the final compromise had to be made, and it was that we will use both India and Bharat. And this is why Article 1 of the Indian Constitution clarifies. The English version says India, that is Bharat, whereas the Hindi version of the Constitution says Bharat arthat India, right? So with this, we complete this chapter. We have read about the different names of India, how they came along, and what is the story behind them. I hope you enjoyed this video lecture, and we will meet again in the next one. Thank you so much.